My name's Max Gagliardi, and this is Always Be Building. If you're watching this video, take a moment, hit the subscribe button on YouTube, or you can follow me on your favorite podcast app. Hope you enjoy the show.
Efficiency, when you get into like the multifamily commercial world, efficiency is super important. And so seeing building after building be overbuilt or over-designed, where what ends up happening is you're building a lot more square footage than you're able to rent out. Like the percentage is just too low. And all of a sudden now you can't afford to build a thing. Very common.
It's interesting you say that, because those are a lot of the comments that you made with us when looking at some of the original Clubhouse thoughts. It was like, this breezeway is massive. You're like, this is like a giant breezeway. Like, you guys driving, you didn't say this, it was basically like, are we driving a truck through this thing? Or like, what's the point of this? And then it's like, this gym space over here, like that's huge. Are we going to have like 20 treadmill? You know, it's just like little things around dimensions and scale that I think that architecture background gives you a sense of that we're like, I don't know, it looked good on the design. I mean, it looks cool. Like, yeah, it looks cool versus like, is this the best use of space? Is this efficient? I think is the best word for it.
Well, because you have to pay for it. Like you're gonna pay for a ginormous gym, and then you're gonna go and you're gonna put 3 treadmills in it, and it's gonna look hilarious. And so, listen, if you're into that, you can do it, but it might not be the best use of the cash. So those are the things that I always, spaces that are too big, and they never feel better. You know, I think there's all these conversations about kitchen design, especially in apartments, because people say, oh, these kitchens, you know, are too big, or you know, and in the US we have obviously the accessibility requirements and that kind of stuff, and building code. And a lot of that stuff was developed using human ergonomics, and a lot of people don't realize that. But there's actually magical, you know, the kitchen triangle, right? Like that came up like during the '60s, where you know, there was kind of like a boom in the single family home building, and kitchens were super important, right? Like and being an efficient kitchen was like became a thing. It was actually, there's some really cool books out there for this. And I think that people kind of forget and say, oh, well, we make them like this because of the code. And it's like, no, like the history of all of these things is that there's human ergonomics. There is actually, if your kitchen island is further, I think the magical dimension, for me at least, is like 44 inches. If you're any way further than 44 inches between your island and the back wall, that's going to be a very like uncomfortable kitchen to cook in. And like, yeah, you can make it 6 feet, like go ahead, but then you're going to be walking through with like your dishes and your pots and pans and your hot things and your, you know, so that to me, that's always been a really good example, is when you make a kitchen only so large before it's really uncomfortable. So I always encourage people to start out with what's the smallest you can make something and then go from there, you know?
That's good. What about on the design side? You've done some really cool stuff there. Just how do you get those inspirations? Do you think about the client? Do you think about the property? Or do you pull from your own internal inspirations? Just how do you approach design when you're helping people on that front?
I mean, I think it's similar to starting with that question, like, whom do you want to be? And I think that whenever I do talk to people about it, I think after the first 2 or 3 conversations that we have about it, I typically end up with a clearer picture of whom they want to be, much better than the picture that they have themselves, right? So I think that very clearly, for me, especially with your crew, very early on, I knew what you guys wanted. I understood the assignment fairly early, and so that has made it a lot easier to put things in front of you guys that I generally think you're gonna like. I mean, you never know, right? Like, and sometimes I'll go a little bit bolder. Like the last meeting that we had, I like what I put in front of you guys. I'm like, they're either gonna love it or they're gonna hate it. You know, you guys liked it, so that was good.